Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the Environment 2050 conference. We're continuing with our very interesting interviews with the important partners to this initiative. And we have with us Adam Eijzenstein, who is a Senior Director at Teva for ESG.
Exactly.
So tell us a bit about yourself, Adam. What is your position? What does your portfolio include?
Great, so thanks for having me, Mike. Good to be here. So my name's Adam. I was born and raised in London, UK, and I came here 10 years ago.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've been in the environment and sustainability space for the past 15 years, and more recently, in the past few months, in ESG as well. I've been at Teva for 8 years, mostly working on environment and sustainability programs. And just a couple of months ago, I've moved to our corporate ESG function. So yeah.
Very interesting. Now, Teva is a pharmaceutical company, a big company, international, which I'm sure is focused on revenue and shareholders being happy with the results every year. So why is it important to Teva to be part of the ESG global community, and why is it a priority for you?
Yeah, so I think a company specifically like Teva, the intersection between ESG and what we do as a core business is very much aligned. So Teva is a pharmaceutical company. Our social kind of mission is really to help people, help patients.
Heal the world.
Exactly. Provide cures and treatments to all sorts of people all across the world. And because we're a generic company, we're one of the largest leading generic companies out there, we're all about providing high quality generic medicines at affordable prices all across the world to perhaps also marginalized populations, but also to low and middle income countries. So for us, the social aspect is very, very strong and directly connected to our mission as a company. So ESG really kind of helps us to bring that out in the way that we communicate to the world.
Healing people, healing the environment, and being part of a responsible global community.
Exactly.
Indeed. So I understand that as part of that philosophy or corporate agenda, Teva's 46% greenhouse reduction goal has just been validated by what's called the Science-Based Target Initiative, SBTI.
Yeah.
Now, I understand this is a big deal, and I'll be very happy if you tell us a bit about it. What is this initiative, and what does it mean to be validated with this goal?
Yeah, so the SBTI, the Science-Based Target Initiative, is basically a partnership between different, mostly non-profit organizations. So including the CDP, formerly known as the Carbon Disclosure Project, the UN Global Compact, the WRI, World Resources Institute, and the WWF, Worldwide Fund for Nature. So very much kind of coming from the non-profit side of things. And their aim is to help corporations like Teva, but many others, to set what they see as ambitious targets based on the latest climate science.
Indeed.
So that basically means they're aligned with the Paris Climate Agreement to limit global temperature rises to well below 2 degrees C, and preferably to limit them to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So what it's basically doing is taking the framework that countries use to set ambitious targets and applies that to allow companies to do a similar process to set these ambitious targets which are aligned with the climate science. So Teva was the first company in Israel to commit to the SBTI to set these ambitious targets. And just as of last week, we were the first large company in Israel to have our targets validated and approved by the Science-Based Target Initiative.
Which means they were examined and you've met a very strict criteria.
Yeah, so they have a very strict protocol and a very robust and structured process to validate these targets. And fortunately, we've been very successful in getting through that process. So we're the first company in Israel to do it, so I think it's great. And basically, we put Israel on the map in terms of the SBTI and these kind of climate targets. So
leading the way.
We try.
So within that framework, I understand that Teva has just met a very impressive 13% reduction benchmark or target, but this is just one milestone along the way, and you have a long way to get to 46%. I'm sure a lot of hard work is involved in that. If you could tell us, what are you doing and how are you planning to get to this target? By the way, which is the year you've committed to?
We've committed to 2030 to reduce our emissions for Scope 1 and 2 by 46%. And that's based on our 2019 baseline. So yeah, as soon as we went out and we decided to set these science-based targets, we kind of very immediately realized now we have to actually execute on them. So it's quite easy, relatively, to go out and set a target, but then to actually meet it, obviously, is where the hard work comes into play.
Of course.
So one of the first things we did was to set up something we call internally a sustainability task force. And this is a multidisciplinary team of experts within the organization that touch on energy management and decarbonization activities. So it's including people from our engineering teams, facilities management, procurement, EHS, finance, legal. Anyone within the organization or any function within the organization that kind of touches on the ability to manage energy or reduce our emissions, we brought them in to be part of our engagement and part of the work to develop an execution strategy. So we basically identified at the global level all the different measures, initiatives that need to happen across the multi-year target that we have. And we started to work through the company to filter down these targets and actions all the way through the business units, all the way to the sites, to the relevant functions at the site levels, in order to kind of execute on these goals and actions so that we can then monitor and watch our progress on how we're achieving our targets each year along the way to our 2030 goal.
Very interesting. Well, that's why they say planning is important, execution is divine.
Exactly.
So if there are other companies out there, Teva has been the first to be validated by the SBTI. What would be your recommendation to them if they decide to embark on this ambitious project? We have 1 minute, so if you just give one recommendation or two as to how to approach this process.
So I think the first thing is just to be confident about setting a kind of longer term target. I know in the past target setting's always been about like 1 year or 2 or 3 years max. But times are changing. Now we need to see some kind of long-term commitment, some long-term ambition by companies to set these targets. So my recommendation would just be to get started on the journey, set one of these targets. And I think what most companies will find is that once you set a kind of that direction, you may not know all the milestones and specific actions that are going to get you there, but things start to come together once you kind of set the goal and the direction. So start the work and things will come naturally.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you very much for the interview. Excuse me, we're in the middle of an interview. Thank you very much, Adam, for this interview, and thank Teva for leadership in this field and for being part of this important conference.
A pleasure to be here.